Hello there and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
And I am Mike Forster. Hey, we got a guest that we are very excited to have on, talking about one of our favorite characters. We are joined by Will. You know him as Will of the Force. Will, thanks for joining Thank the Maker for an episode.
I am so stoked to be here talking about the best villain in Star Wars. I said it.
Damn.
Dude, I don't know if I am at liberty to disagree.
This is a very controversial take until you watch a lot of Star Wars and learn a lot about all of the characters.
Correct.
We're kicking it off right away. But first, one thing I want to say before I get started, because I think we're all pretty much mauled up today. I am rocking my own design from Roosevelt's, which feels cool.
Look at you.
And Will, you're rocking the MAUL hoodie. You're a little new to the Roosevelt's fam over the last probably half a year. What is your take on? It almost kind of seems like merchandise is finally hitting its stride over the last couple of years with Star Wars stuff, because I think Adam and I have joked about walking around the parks. You see stuff that just says like Star Wars, Stormtrooper, and now like we actually have gear that we want to wear.
As I don't want to date myself, but as someone who is proudly a kid who grew up in the time of the prequels, which in my opinion, and I might be biased because I wasn't alive during the original trilogy, was the best time to be a Star Wars kid, because you had stuff on shelves, not only from the OT, but also the new stuff that was coming out in the prequels. I mean, going to Toys R Us, going to Burger King, the new Burger King toys they showed photos of them for Mando. And look, I'm almost 30. I'm going to be in line getting those toys. So when it comes to merchandise, stuff that I can wear to rep Star Wars, I mean, that's my whole closet at this point. So my wife loves it. She'll steal my sweatshirts, but there's stuff like this where I'm like, sorry, I love you to death, but that's mine.
Yeah.
That is my property.
Yes, exactly.
So Will, tell us a little bit, your stuff started coming across probably about a year ago. And I'm like, man, this dude loves Star Wars. You're a positive fan. And when I say positive, I think we're all drawn to the magnetism of people who truly do understand Star Wars beyond just being like, I watch it. And your energy and your excitement for like, both going to cons and asking people for controversial hot takes and all that. I watch all of it because I'm like, man, I am curious about what these people are going to say. And I love when you do the trivia stuff, because, as someone who kind of freezes up when I get put in the spotlight, right? Like, because you always go, do you feel like you know a lot about Star Wars? I'm a person who's like, culturally, globally, yes, I do. In this exact moment, I will freeze up and forget who Anakin Skywalker is at this point.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how this ride has been for you, becoming a Star Wars internet person, as we have found many of ourselves, doing podcasts and having shows, and what's your background quick for our listeners?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for what you said for that. That is extremely nice of you to say. As somebody who, Grayson, my co-host on Determined Focus, and I, as two people who watch your stuff very frequently, that's very nice to hear. So thank you so much, because you guys have been doing this for a long time. Like, how long? It's been like over 4 or 5 years, right?
6 years in January.
Yeah. So it's been a while that we have been listening. So I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. So for me, I started out going to conventions and doing like man on the street stuff, not Star Wars related. It was more just like, I was in college. I went to school in New Jersey. It was an easy, quick, cheap train ride to get into New York City. I ended up working in New York for a little bit. I worked at NBC, so I bumped around the shows there between Late Night with Seth Meyers and then Saturday Night Live. And then after that, started doing some local news stuff. But between all of that, I mean, my entire life has always been yapping about nerdy stuff. So I have a pretty extensive comic book collection. I mean, not behind me, it's not just Star Wars. Star Wars is like my number one. I'd say like if there's like a triangle, it's like Star Wars comics, but like mainly Batman's face, and then just like animated stuff. So like Avatar, Last Airbender, whatever it is. But Star Wars is the thing that like I've always yapped about. It's the thing that like I grew up with like we were talking about earlier, like going to stores. Lego is a huge thing for me. I was indoctrinated into George Lucas's wanting, like, hey, this is for kids. I was one of those kids, and whether it was reading books at like the book fair that I knew I didn't have money to buy, but like wanted to just go and swipe through the Scholastic books, or
Of course.
talking about that stuff on the internet. I joke a lot that like I would yap about Star Wars to the wall or my wife. And that's usually like, I was like, hey, I love you, but like maybe I should start trying to talk about this with other people. And she's like, I love you too, and I love watching this stuff, but like, yeah, maybe you should start talking.
Yeah,
about
good idea.
Other people. So rather than going out and making friends, I turned on a camera, and from that, I met some of my best friends. I mean, my best friend Grayson, who I've been friends with long before we even started doing a podcast together. It's just the best, and your focus determines your reality, like YFDYR, and determined focus is the name of the podcast. It's all about, truly, it's my favorite lesson in Star Wars, because whatever your mindset is, that will end up, like Qui-Gon Jinn says, becoming your reality. So whether it's putting your mind to something, or like just walking into a movie theater, like, I'm excited to watch this. I don't know what it's going to be, but I am open to enjoying it. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to like it a lot more than listening to people online or listening to people at the comic book shop being like, oh, that doesn't look good, or blah, blah, blah. It's just going to be more fun if you're excited to have fun. So that's my headspace. And Star Wars is how I talk about it on the internet, I guess.
That's amazing, dude. And I love that you mentioned, finding people that, finding some of your best friends through the fandom, because there's something magical about Star Wars specifically that allows for people to find their people.
Yep.
And Mike and I both know that experience. So it's good to have you on that note.
I'm super stoked to be here. I cannot wait to talk about some MAUL, dude. It's going to be fun.
Well, and I like your triangle too, because like Luthen Rail is the Batman of Star Wars, right? It just
that's a fun question.
100%.
I don't want to go off on a tangent for you guys because we have so much to talk about, but that is something I have to think about now.
You got to throw that in there, sprinkle it in there, think about it tonight.
Seed planted.
Yeah, there we go.
Whoa.
So if you picked up on our last episode, we are trying to come at it from a perspective of introducing people who don't have time to watch largely where this character has existed, which is in animated projects of Star Wars. But in all of that, between the books and the animated projects, MAUL has been fleshed out. Adam and I talked last week about saying, for a lot of people who didn't dive into it, MAUL kind of got the Boba Fett treatment. Looks cool.
Yeah.
Serves his purpose, and then gets, sliced up or taken out at some point to go, oh, that's a Star Wars villain right there.
Yep.
So if you've got 1 or 2 sentences to describe Darth Maul to someone who only knows him as the devil guy who got cut in half at the end of Phantom Menace, how would you describe him to someone who is like, wait, how is he alive? Who is he? Why do I care about him?
Okay. I would say he is the worst person that I cannot stop rooting for. Truly.
Yes.
Whenever he is on screen, whatever the scene is, I know he's going to do something that I'm probably not going to like. Especially in animation, 9 times out of 10, I'm like, man, he's probably going to off that person who I really like and is probably a good character and probably would help the Republic and make the galaxy a better place. But I'm also like, man, I love when MAUL is just MAUL. So it's a weird dichotomy. You have the people in Star Wars like your Obi-Wan Kenobis, your Yodas, your Luke Skywalkers, your Princess Leias, who you love watching be good people. But you can't have the best of the best without the worst of the worst. So you got to have balance. And that's what Star Wars is all about.
Dude, great answer. You said 2 things already that are really, really landing for me. One, that he's arguably the best villain in all of Star Wars. And I'm saying this as a 46-year-old person who grew up watching nothing but, the original trilogy. Right. Darth Vader was the villain. Of course, Palpatine, but, Vader's the compelling one, right? And having lived through the prequels and then the whole Disney era, there's so much more now. And I think undoubtedly, like unassailably, Maul is the standout. And I love a lot of the villains in the Disney era. I think Kylo Ren's incredible. I think the Stranger from The Acolyte is incredible. But Maul, like to your next point about rooting for him, he is like, and I said this last week, if you want to move the goalposts of what can be considered an anti-hero, you go to the darkest edge of that. He fits within those goalposts.
Agreed.
Me. He's just also charismatic in a way that I think maybe wouldn't be possible without Sam Witwer's incredible performance.
100%.
He made that character. So
highly underrated too, in regards
you,
to like when we think of the Troy Bakers of the world and all of those people who have put tons and tons of characters into pop culture. Sam Witwer is still, to this point, in a global perspective of pop culture, Sam Witwer is highly underrated, especially with how much he has put into this character specifically. And I hope Shadow Lord is the opportunity for people to be like, what is happening here and how do I get to be a part of it? Because between the animation style is hitting at just the right time where a Wild Robot, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem,
dude,
into the Spider-Verse, right? Like the animation is making, even K-pop Demon Hunters is making people be like, you know, the amount of people that sat through K-pop Demon Hunters and are probably able to look at MAUL and go, you know what? This feels familiar to me, I might be in, is a huge opportunity for an on-ramp for Star Wars fans. So I'm cautiously awaiting what could happen.
I love it. We talk about top fours a lot on Determined Focus and like who are those four faces when you talk about like current Star Wars or Star Wars in the modern era. And I think next week, Grayson and I were talking about it. It's definitely Ahsoka, definitely Mando with like a little Grogu sitting above Mando's head. And then I do think after this show, I'm expecting to love it as much as I love anything MAUL related, but I am really expecting the Gen Pop to love it as well and be brought back into animation just from how good the animation looks and the team behind it. But like, I really do think that in the next week or two, MAUL is going to end up being one of those four main faces of the current era of Star Wars, without a doubt.
The Mount Rushmore of modern Star Wars. I like that. I'm inclined to agree. I think, you know, as we get into this, we're talking moments today about, you know, why he's such an important character to the overall story, despite us knowing the beginning-ish and the end. Darth Maul, there is so much nuance in between that like you almost would think at some point we had known everything about it. The trailer drops, Adam and I are sitting there front row watching it in Japan, and we're just like, yo, we thought we were done with this, but like talk about bringing us right back in. We are like back immediately, Bad Batch moment, like what is happening here? But the style of it makes me feel like I'm like, oh man, this is almost like scratching that Andor itch for me in terms of its tone. The last trailer was edited like a horror movie. You know, like you're watching it being like, I'm scared of this guy. This is awesome. So between Sam's quote I said on the podcast last week, he was like, this is a story of bad guys and worse guys, and you know who to root for. And I was like, well, that's a quote.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. MAUL Shadow Lord, like we said last week, hopefully we said this information last week, 10-episode series, premieres April 6th on Disney+. 2 episodes per week leading into May the 4th. You know, I'm not mad at it, but also, come on. Like all these podcasters out here, like, can you just like take it easy on us with this double episode shit? Bro. All right. Well, anyway, let's get into the Clone Wars Season 7. We saved this specifically because of how MAUL-centric it is, or more just like how important MAUL is in this last little bit of the Clone Wars. And then we'll talk about Rebels, we'll talk about Solo, and we'll hear from some patrons as well about some of their favorite moments and things like that. So Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 9 is where we actually get into the MAUL stuff. He's mostly off screen, but establishes like kind of the mission, reintroduces Ahsoka. Here, MAUL has seized Mandalore with his Mandalorian loyalists, you know, the Mauldalorians, as we call them, Mandalorian Super Commandos. Bo-Katan requests Ahsoka and the 501st Legion come to help retake Mandalore because the shit has hit the fan. It's a brilliant setup. And this leads us into, is it this episode or the next one, episode 10, where we have like the classic Lucasfilm opening titles?
It's the beginning of this one. Those last 4 all have that.
Yeah.
They switch the titles.
Yeah,
Dude, I got goosebumps just saying the words that describe the fact that it happened. Like, what a brilliant move by Filoni and company on that.
The brilliance about this season particularly is that like we are feeling the weight of knowing what is happening. Like we are days away from Order 66. The weight of all of these things is feeling very, very, very grim for knowing exactly where we're going to head into. So, you know, I could almost tell people just start watching season 7 just to get an idea of like, you know, hey, just get on board and start watching it because the animation is so good, but also the weight of it all of a sudden throws you right in to be like, whoa, why are there Mandalorians that are like fighting each other? Because at some point there was like the Creed, you know, whatever way. But you can really see the idea that the Mandalorian people are fractured. This was a perfect opportunity for Maul to be Maul, to manipulate, show his power, and also arrange the strength that he needs to say, my goal is still to kill Emperor Palpatine.
Yes.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's doing that by any means necessary. And you just, every time Ahsoka was introduced on screen, I was like, oh no, it's going to happen. So, you know, Will, from your perspective, what is your, you know, kind of just going through these episodes, especially, you know, what do you remember what you were feeling like when you were watching that the first time?
Oh my gosh. I always say that if Clone Wars Season 7, those last 4 episodes, was just a theatrical release, it would be in my top 3 favorite Star Wars films. Without question. Like, it is what they did with those last 4 episodes of Clone Wars Season 7 was, I was talking about it in our live episode on Monday yesterday, that Lucasfilm Animation steps the bar up every time. And this is 2020, right? Clone Wars Season 7 came out? Yeah. And it was like around the time of like Mando hype, and obviously things were shut down for COVID, but like I remember being at work. I was working at a news station at the time and being like, okay, the new episode of Clone Wars is out. And seeing the title card switch to red, which for a lot of us Clone Wars fans, when the title card switches to red, you know some stuff's going to go down. So when that
switching
popped up,
the font to the original old school version.
Yep, it was like, whoa, there's some important stuff that's going to happen. And then obviously we're talking about Maul popping up at the end of that episode, but like starting off that all of this, look, a lot of times people look for other projects and other reading materials to make the source material or stuff even better than it already is. A lot of times when it comes to the prequels, you talk about like the books that were coming out in that era, or like I'm a big fan of the Star Wars comics, or like Genndy Tartakovsky's 2003 Clone Wars, or even the Clone Wars stuff like this. All of that supplemental material just makes the main story so much better. And for this honestly is what made me so excited to get Revenge of the Sith in theaters last year, is watching this and then going immediately to the theater. So this is one of my favorite like small microscopes in Star Wars that means so much for the time.
Dude, apologies in advance for the name drop, but the experience you just talked about, incredible. Imagine, what was it, like almost 6 years ago now, in the beginning, first year of this podcast, when I wasn't caught up with animation yet. Either was Ryan. We were kind of watching it real time as we were getting ready to talk about animation. I finally finished the Clone Wars the day that we had Ashley Eckstein on as a guest. So to like hear her voice after watching this crushing emotional finale, like I can't even begin to describe that.
I have that 332nd Trooper with Vader's silhouette in the T-visor in the snow tattooed on my thigh as big as possible. Like, dude, this, I love Clone Wars, but if anybody is ever like, hey, I've only ever watched the movies and like, I don't really know how I feel about animation, this is what I direct people to. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I love Revenge of the Sith. And I'm like, hey, what if Revenge of the Sith was even better? And they're like, oh, what are you talking about? I immediately tell them, hey, start at the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, and you're going to be bawling your eyes out by the end of it. And then you're going to want to go watch Revenge of the Sith. And then you're probably going to watch Kenobi. And then you're going to want to go, hey, how did Maul come back? And you're going to go through. It just opens the floodgates for so much just sponging of Star Wars content, which for me, look, I know I grew up with it, but I like pulling people in on it too. So this is a great way to do it.
Same.
100%. So I think for getting people on board, this is really where we start to see Maul's big plan. The big plan of taking over Mandalore, amassing an army of Mandalorian warriors is largely to get Anakin Skywalker to come and basically fall into his trap, which is if I kill the apprentice, because he knows Palpatine's play, he knows that apprentices are disposable until he finds a more powerful one. He knows that, this is the play all along, was to get Anakin Skywalker to come. He's going to kill him, go for Palpatine. But when he reveals in this amazing moment,
and dude, shout out the amazing title also to this episode, this full circle, the Phantom Apprentice.
The Phantom Apprentice. It's like, yes. But the part of it that makes it so interesting is, of course, when we get introduced to him, when he's like, "You're not Anakin Skywalker," and it's just little Ahsoka there, ready to be like, "Let's do this." Right now, knowing everything that's happened to Ahsoka, she is, the Jedi Order has completely betrayed her. Like, she is fighting as much for herself as she is for her own sense of identity, right? And that's a really important part of it, because the relationship between the only thing that will keep me even connected to this philosophy is my master.
Right.
Knowing what is going to come very soon later, it is just like Ahsoka Tano is a character that, like, in terms of going through it, she's been going through it and she goes through it. So the idea that Maul introduces, kind of like looks at her and goes, "Come with me. Together we will rule the galaxy," right?
Yep.
And she is straight up like, I'm not doing that. It's an amazing.
Also doesn't believe him.
Right. And
the idea that Anakin could be turned, all of this stuff.
Right. And that's, and so you're almost like getting, like, seeing the trial of Ahsoka Tano of being like, I'm trying to trust when my trust has been broken. I'm trying to believe when my belief system has been shattered and broken. It's like you're watching both characters at their peak moment of, like, a foundational approach to their philosophy, which is like, one wants to be good and the other one is like, there is no reason to not be bad.
Right.
Because it's all a sham. And so if you aren't ruling through power and might and things, what are you doing? Everything else can be corrupted. He is the anti-Jedi at this point.
And then they face off after that, after this incredible, like, character moment, and just dialogue. Then they have, I would say, like 100% in Star Wars, the best animated fight we've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. Immediately.
And it was so good, I made a Roosevelt shirt about it.
Yeah. And we know, anyone who knows that it was motion capture, and it was done with Ray Park, who was the original Darth Maul in costume, not the voice. And was it Lauren Mary Kim who did Ahsoka's stuff?
Yep.
Marvel and Star Wars veteran Lauren Mary Kim, amazing stunt performer. And you can just see, it's just like, it's jarringly noticeable, like, how leveled up, whether or not you understand how this animation was created. It's just, you just watch it going, oh my God, how does this look at it? It just like knocks you on your ass how good the choreography is, how good the animation is. I'm not an anime fan. Mike isn't either. We don't know much else in animation when it comes to, duels, fighting, battles, things like this. But I don't know. I would guess that even a lot of anime fans might still give this a lot of cred, one would say. I don't know if you're into anime, Will.
I've only ever watched the first 2 seasons of the live action One Piece. My wife and I just finished it like a week and a half ago. And that is all I know about anime, other than watching Dragon Ball Z with my cousins when I was a kid. So that's all I got.
Let's make no more comments.
It took a lot less time for them to power up than it did.
100%.
So Ahsoka defeats Maul. But, people who've seen it, of course, know they're on the rafters of this giant dome that houses this part of Mandalore, because this is at a point where like all the Mandalorians are living under these giant geodesic domes because the planet's been destroyed, right? And they're up at the very top in the rafters. She defeats him. He's falling to his death, and she grabs him and won't let him die, whether it's just in the name of like justice or just honor or, the Jedi code, even though she's no longer a Jedi, she doesn't want to kill him, right? So she grabs his hand, and he's dangling there, screaming, losing his shit, like, let me go, let me die. And it's like, again, talk about like a character moment that says like everything about a character. It is so poignant and prominent, and like it's just perfect. It's so perfect. She pulls him up, ultimately he gets arrested. It's not just that he wants to die like this honorable, like dark death, but
he was like, give me the spider legs back. Just let me go. Trust me.
He also doesn't want to be a prisoner, right? So unfortunately for him, that's how it ends. And that's where the episode ends. He's taken off in one of the lats. And then we get into episode 11, Shattered, and we see him in this, what looks like a giant, for the normies, looks like a giant
sarcophagus.
It's almost like a carbonite box, but Maul is in it, conscious, and he's restrained by, like, I want to say this has got to be like Beskar and some other things that can like contain a force wielder's powers and actually imprison someone.
It's the last one of its kind from the Mandalorian Jedi Wars.
Yes.
Yeah. And so for people who are like, okay, why is that important? The lore of that the Mandalorians and the Jedi have been fighting for centuries, right?
Yep.
And so that's where, things like the Darksaber is important, because Tar Vizsla has force, the force powers, and he's one of the first Jedi Mandalorian, all these things, right? In so many instances where we see that Mandalorians and Jedi never got along, even from like whipcord, on the whipcord to be able to disarm a lightsaber, pull these things off. Like, they are ultimately prepared. The reason Mandalorians are so fierce is because one of their greatest adversaries was Jedi, who have these unhuman abilities to be able to manipulate things. And so these Mandalorians are like overly prepared for every situation, which is part of why, when you think about going back to Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker, Boba Fett has no problem being like, he cuts like Luke, he literally ties up Luke with his whipcord that is designed to do exactly what it does, which is like, if a Jedi has his lightsaber too close to his body, he can't use it.
Yep.
And it's like a great little thing that, of course, the lore gets added to, but then putting Maul in this, force-eating sarcophagus is such a great nod to being like, oh, did they just make that? It's like, no, buddy.
Yeah.
This is
a long time.
They've been had that. Yeah. So we open up episode 11 with Maul in that kind of sarcophagus thing. He's aboard a Venator Star Destroyer. Again, for normies, there's a moment that won't matter to say here, but Ahsoka has this conversation with a very important clone. And right as this conversation ends, this is when Order 66 is happening on the other side of the galaxy. She has a moment where she feels it. Maul feels it inside his sarcophagus, but they're having equal but opposite reactions in a way to feeling it. Ahsoka's feeling, oh my God, Anakin, no. And Maul's feeling, brilliant. Like, he sees what Palpatine has like really done. He understands that he sees his whole plan just like unfold in his mind through the Force. That the whole thing with the clones, it was all this long, protracted plan that Palpatine had to turn the Jedi's army against them. And like, again, talking about animation, pulling off some shit that you only see in live action. In the sarcophagus thing, you can only see Maul's eyes. Like, it's like a giant Beskar burqa. You know what I mean? You can only see his eyes. And the amount of emotion that is portrayed in that animation is everything you need to see. I just can't say enough good shit about it. It's incredible. So the shit hits the fan and we get into it. Anything else? Any comments right here at this moment before we keep going?
I think the biggest thing with Ahsoka and Maul in this moment is when you're talking about like Ahsoka holding Maul off of the ledge of like, I won't let you fall. A lot of times throughout that battle, Ahsoka has her Luke Skywalker moments of like throwing away the lightsaber. I'm going to choose to do the right thing.
Right.
But the biggest thing I think when you're talking about Maul is somebody who rules by fear because he was raised with fear instilled in him. So he is terrified in that moment of let me die or else we all have to live through what's going to happen in this galaxy.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka having that realization in that moment of, oh my gosh, Anakin, what are you doing? But also in the same thing of like, I just imprisoned the one guy who told me this was going to happen and he was right is incredible, knowing that Ahsoka, whose character, I'm talking about Ashley Eckstein and like how great of a person she is, but like that character is based on when you see somebody who needs help, you help them and always wanting to do the right thing. And in that moment, doing what she thought was the right thing, but then keeping him alive it's incredible. And then afterwards, like we haven't gotten to it yet, but like what she does to like, look, when you have one really bad person and one really good person and you force them narratively to team up, man, that's my favorite thing in the world. So I am in this moment knowing what Ahsoka knows and then hearing like the screaming of Anakin in the background of Anakin, no. And
the actual audio from the film.
It's incredible. And then all throughout that too, you talk about Ahsoka's like wanting to prove to her master after being the one who decided to leave that she's able to do this and that she was choosing the right thing. It's the exact opposite for Maul, because not only was he cut down to size, no pun intended, pun completely intended, but he was then cast out by his master. And I know you guys talked about it in previous stuff with like Maul versus Palpatine and Savage, but like his whole thing is, as much as the rule of two is a real driving force for the Sith, he is no longer Sith, but he still has those daddy issues where Palpatine was the closest to a daddy he's ever had. So he still wants to be able to like, oh, in his twisted mind, prove to his father that he's going to be able to run chaos and maybe even rule the galaxy if Ahsoka helps him out. But that's just the same thing his dad's doing. So as much as he wants to kill that Palpatine and take over, he's just following in his dad's footsteps, which is exactly what Ahsoka's doing. So it's like they are so mirrored in these moments.
That's beautiful, dude. It's incredible.
Proving for Patricide is like the ultimate form of being like, see, I showed you. RG brought him. He's dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Classic daddy issues.
It's all Star Wars is about, man.
For real. So Order 66 hits. The clones turn on Ahsoka, just like they did all the other Jedi that the mainstream folks saw in episode 3. And Ahsoka, she survives this moment temporarily from, at least for long enough to go free Maul. Her plan here is to unleash him as a distraction, essentially. Let him wreak havoc on the rest of the ship. And she tells him that straight up. She unlocks him. They have this great conversation about what happened, and he kind of explains it all. And right, is it in that exact moment in front, right when she lets him out, when he says the brilliant line? Yeah. He's kind of reminiscent of when he's got the spider legs on the trash planet, where he's like tweaking out a little bit. Yeah,
where he's like revenge. My chains are broken, but they're always inside my head, like that. And he's like talking to her, but he's really like talking to himself of like trying to do the math in his head.
100%. So she lets him out, lets him go with like a great line about like, go create some chaos. That's what you're good at. Something like that. And he proceeds to like unleash with one of the few legendary hallway scenes in all of Star Wars on the clones. I mean, gnarly stuff, like closing doors on their arms, all kinds of great shit. And in doing all this, we get into what happens in the next episode. He destroys the hyperdrive of the Star Destroyer. So the whole thing starts to go down. And really, episode 11 into 12, it's one of those that was kind of cut at an almost arbitrary spot because it had to be 2 episodes. It's just one continuous thing. It's like it's an extended commercial break, essentially, going from episode 11 to 12. The thing goes down. This is very Ahsoka, Rex, and the other clones focused. So this is basically the last time we see Maul.
And two, mind you, the clones on this ship are her battalion.
Yes.
They bear her markings. They are a gift from Anakin Skywalker to be like, I trust you to lead these clones, to lead these men into the next battle that I trust you with, right? So there is something almost like she is, to quote Kylo Ren, kill the past if you have to. She's almost doing this like in live time of being like, I am unleashing I'm like releasing everything that I thought I was going to have. It was my own army, and Maul is almost my way of going, the old life is gone.
Yeah.
Because he goes through and just like devastates this battalion.
And then takes off in a ship that they were running for.
Right. And then, so like does Maul things and then leaves Ahsoka to all of this mess. And it's just, like I said, the trial of Ahsoka Tano is insane over these 4 episodes. Just insane in terms of like a character of like, imagine putting yourself in her shoes of, you know, when you had the flashbacks in Ahsoka season 1, or I'm sorry, Ahsoka season 2, Ahsoka season 1, hello, Star Wars podcast. But the whole like Anakin Skywalker looking at this child soldier and seeing her grow up in all of this, you think about her innocence when, you know, she's like, well, this is the Clone Wars. And he's, you know, Anakin turns around, he's like, hell yeah, we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you think about it from everything that she's gone to. And by the time when people, the grumpiest part of the internet's like, well, no, she wasn't like that cool. I'm sitting here being like, yo, did you forget what this person went through?
Yeah.
Not that long ago? Like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, if anything, the fact that she's still out there doing things is incredible. I would have been like, I am going to Octo. I am never talking to a person again. I'm out. I'm over here milking the sirens. I'm good.
Yeah. Not to mention her, and I'm sure you guys will talk about it later, but like foreshadowing her putting on face of like being happy throughout Rebels and then like having to like pop in and be like, Maul on Malachor. It's like you think of this moment and you think of her seeing him again on Malachor. It's like for Twilight of the Apprentice, where she's got to like. I'm sorry, I'm defending Ahsoka a little bit for people saying that she's grumpy and she's too stoic in the Ahsoka series. I'm like, dude, people get mad when they have to wait too long at the DMV, and you're telling me that like all of the stuff that happens to this person throughout the galaxy, that she's at the crux of it. And then also feels guilty for it and then has to fight her and fight him. Like, come on, dude. It's crazy.
100%.
Let's get into Star Wars Rebels and where Maul fits into all of this. Season 2 and 3, we're talking about Twilight of the Apprentice that you just mentioned. This is Maul resurfacing on Malachor. Again, as you said, he sees yet another opportunity. Well, we should first say this is many, many years down the road. Of course, Rebels takes place leading up to the original trilogy. So we're talking about Old Man Maul here. And he's on Malachor, which is this very dark side-centric planet with this giant Sith temple. And he's back in, again, a little bit of that like trash heap brain where maybe he's putting on some of it as a ruse, sort of like a dark Yoda type.
That's exactly what it is, dude.
Yeah. And he's trying to appeal to Ezra as a potential student. And the manipulation, like it's just, he plays this long game to get Ezra to help him. And it's ultimately about locating Obi-Wan on Tatooine. You know, there's this like knowledge that he needs tools to unlock. And we don't have to get into the weeds about what all that is. All you need to really know is that he's still on this Obi-Wan shit decades later. He is still obsessed, 3 different sets of legs later, he's still obsessed with finding Obi-Wan. And there's a lot to watch there. But I don't know, are there any specifics that you guys want to talk about that you feel like people should know? Again, the reunion with Ahsoka's great. Will, what do you got on your mind?
One of the major things that happens on Malachor with Maul is his battle with Kanan. That's where Kanan becomes blind.
Mm-hmm.
Like he blinds Kanan there, which is like, and then Kanan gets that great moment of he gets to show off with, I don't actually need my eyes to see, which is Maul being through fear. Like we were talking about earlier, like everything is taught to him through his eyes. and what he sees, and then having to go up against somebody who cannot see at all, and then being beat by that person is incredible. To talk about Maul Shadow Lord as well, when he pops out and he's like, formerly Darth, now just Maul, and all of the Inquisitors that are there, the Shadow. When you're like, whoa, why do they refer to him as the Shadow? And then now in the show, he's literally called the Shadow Lord. It's like, there's no way we don't see how that ties in and how he gets that moniker. Right. I think one of my two favorite things about Malachor with Maul is obviously the Ezra stuff of him trying to be like, he's failed with Savage. He lost Savage. He took the wrong approach there of trying to be that master because he was attached as a brother, very much like Obi-Wan and Anakin, if you really want to go through there with the mirroring. But he loses Savage. He tries to bring Ahsoka in on the plan. Ahsoka says no. And then now he's going after Ezra, which sets up the rest of Ezra's fiddling with the dark side for the rest of Rebels. But I think what's interesting is to talk about the comics a little bit. In the comics, Maul was trained by Sidious in his very early days with the Sith on Malachor. That's where he learned about the Jedi and where Maul actually found his hatred for the Jedi. So now going to this place after that kind of being the first stepping stone to set him on the path up until this point, and then being like, oh, I'm going to recruit a Jedi is wild for a million reasons. The one thing I do think is my favorite, though, when it comes to Malachor and Maul, is when he knows that Vader is coming in. And there's a deleted sequence that wasn't actually used for the Malachor arc where Maul is talking to Ahsoka, where Ahsoka is asking Maul if he knows who Vader is. And Ahsoka ends up being like, oh, well, who is he? And Maul just ends the sequence, and it was deleted, but I wish they kept it in. And for me, I'm like, headcanon, got to be in there, where Maul says who I should have been in reference to Vader. Ooh. And I'm like, ooh, man. And then you think about that conversation with what we just talked about in Clone Wars Season 7, dude. Those two, when they get in there and they talk about just the lore of Star Wars, it's the best.
I mean, I feel like Shadow Lord is going to have this. Like, we're going to have to see that, you know?
Yeah. We got to see Maul versus Vader, right? We have to.
100%. Especially because I love the way that Rebels handled Vader. The first time the Ghost Crew meets Vader, they're like, it was like a Terminator for the first time. They were just like, what was that thing?
Yeah.
And, you know, they did him in the McQuarrie style. So his like look is a little bit more, you know, eccentric, and it's so good. But like, you know, for Maul to have like all of this knowledge and looking back, because I love what you said, Will, I completely agree. There is a part of going back to Malachor. You're a kid, you're raised by this person, and Kenobi represents where he thinks that Palpatine saw him as ineffective, that you were not what I thought, you failed me. And so even though despite Maul loses multiple times, it's a strategy switch for him in those points. But Kenobi still represents where the fracture happened of where he should have been. So there is that incessant rage that is never fully fulfilled until they meet in the Twin Sons episode.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful moment. I almost like don't want to like spoil it because I want people to experience it, but it's a beautiful moment in that sense that like we do see where Darth Maul gets what he maybe has been looking for all along, his words.
Dude, we gotta get moving here, but like I've said this before and I'll say it again right now. I'm more excited about this Maul series than I am most things coming up in Star Wars.
That's fair. Gosh. That's very fair.
All right, let's move on to the final Maul moment. And I just looked this up here, talking about the potential for Maul versus Vader. We only have about a year between this Malachor bit and this final moment, the episode Twin Sons in Rebels, when he finally finds Kenobi. There's an amazing, like, again, like losing his marbles moment. He's out in the desert, parched, searching, talking to himself, screaming Kenobi into the sky. You've probably seen this GIF, listener, viewer, even if you don't know what it is. That is this. Finally, he finds an old Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, just right before the events of A New Hope, essentially. or it's 2 BBY, right? Right?
Yes.
2
Yes.
BBY. So a couple years before. Still, I mean, it's between Kenobi and A New Hope. The sun is beating the shit out of this man. Now he's old looking.
That Tatooine sun, man, it
Yeah.
does the opposite of skincare.
So he comes upon Obi-Wan sitting at a campfire in the middle of the night, and they square off. And just like with Ahsoka, it's a much more condensed but equally poetic version of the moment with Ahsoka, where they have this beautiful exchange that says so much about their character. It's a little more on the nose because the quote that always resonated with me, and again, it shows either side of a similar coin. Maul says, "Look what you've become, a rat in the desert." And Obi-Wan says, "Look what I have risen above."
Dude.
I mean, bro.
Damn.
And he has nothing out there. He's sitting at a campfire with a dewback, dude. He has nothing. This guy has nothing. He's lost his entire reputation, the galaxy. He's alone. Look what I've risen above. Like, dude, it's the best.
It's so good. So they square off, and the posturing is beautiful. We talked about this when we covered Rebels, and there are very detailed breakdowns of how they square off. Pure Kurosawa samurai film style. The positioning, it's a little game of chess before a move is even taken. And Obi-Wan goes through, I think, 3 or 4 different stances, and it's like he goes through different lightsaber forms, almost preparing himself. And this is also reminiscent. This sets up A New Hope. You know how the lightsaber battle. This is retcon shit, of course, because like you're dealing with old.
Alec Guinness was definitely a fan of Rebels for sure. We all know that.
He was planning this. He watched the source material.
We're setting up old Alec Guinness, having been probably not the most athletic guy, having to fight David Prowse with their limited like fencing training, essentially, that they got. This, a couple old guys knocking their twigs together, kind of duel. It helps the headcanon of that being, they were posturing the whole time. It doesn't have to be like Revenge of the Sith, because making these big sweeping moves doesn't work for them at this point, right? It's the same thing with Maul. It sets that up. The whole fight is like, Will, you're too young for this probably, but Mike, do you remember the game Bushido Blade on Nintendo NES?
It was so frustrating because you had to be patient and make the right call at the right time.
Yeah. It wasn't Street Fighter. You couldn't hit someone 100 times with a samurai sword.
Contra, where I was just like
button mashing.
Couldn't do it.
It was purely like the weapon is deadly. One touch with a katana, you're dead, right? And that's how this duel plays out. It's just, I think, 2 or 3 moves total. It's like a swipe, a block, and another swipe straight through the middle of Maul's double-sided lightsaber.
The exact move that Maul killed Qui-Gon with, or that knocks Qui-Gon off. That opens him up for the strike.
Cuts him down.
I mean, all in all, the end is very fitting for Maul, and especially because he doesn't die right away. He gets held the same way that Qui-Gon, for Obi-Wan, again, God, another character we should go into, is like him being able to let him rest the same way that he did for Qui-Gon. And so to see someone who has so much hope in him and see someone hold someone who has so much hate for him in the same way is like, there's your George Lucas poetry at rhymes.
And then they share this amazing moment where neither of them actually understand the way the Force has worked in its mysterious ways to let the events of the galaxy play out like this. They're both asking, now that, the prophesized chosen one turned to the dark side, they're wondering, was the prophecy wrong? Who actually is the chosen one? And Maul asks Obi-Wan, is he the chosen one? But he's referring to Luke.
Yep.
And Obi-Wan says he is. This is what they believe in this moment, because they don't quite yet understand, like, in the fullness of time, what the will of the Force is. Pardon the pun. So in this moment, they think Luke is the chosen one. He very well may be, in the sense that things are cyclical, in the same way that we get to the end of The Rise of Skywalker and you hear the line from Anakin, amongst all the words from the Jedi that help Rey rise up and defeat Palpatine. rise and what does he say? Fulfill your what is the line? Bring balance to the force as I did.
As I did before.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard like a definitive take from Filoni other than to say they believe that Luke is the chosen one in that moment. So I don't know what the absolute canon is in terms of like the chosen one maybe being like the one in the Matrix, that there has been a one before. There have been many ones before. It may be that, but in that moment they share that like solace, I guess, in the Force ultimately guiding everything that they've been through and everything that will come.
And that there is something well beyond both of their lives.
Exactly.
You know, there is something really beautiful about that, because there is, you know, the reflection of the Jedi and the acceptance of the dark side that they lost.
I don't know if it's just my interpretation of it, but the last line that Maul says, he will avenge us. He does not say me, he says us. And at this moment, Maul has no one. Ezra has turned against him, and that is literally the end of it. He does not have his family. He doesn't have his brother. His mother Talzin is gone. Like, literally everyone in Maul's life is gone. He is alone. And at least from my interpretation of reading between the lines on it, when he says us, in the same way when we were talking about Clone Wars Season 7, that Maul reached out his hand and was like, Ahsoka, join me against this thing that is bigger than all of us in Palpatine, in the Empire. I would like to think, and look, I've never asked Sam Witwer this, but I would like to think that when he says he will avenge us, he does not only mean like the dark side or like just bad guys in general. He means us of him and Kenobi, that this path was set out way before both of them. And they were just pawns in this evil man's game. And for this person to be the chosen one, this child, Luke, I mean, you can go back and forth on who the actual chosen one is. I know in George's original scripts or scrap scripts, Leia was going to end up being the chosen one afterwards. Like, it goes on and on with the prophecy. But like, for Maul to look at Obi-Wan and say, he will avenge us, I do believe it is him mending and forming that bridge with Obi-Wan, even in that final moment. Because when his lightsaber blade is slashed, and Maul goes to punch like he did Qui-Gon, because Obi-Wan was obviously baiting him from the Sam Witwer explanation of I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm old Ben, I'm Qui-Gon Jinn, and then Maul makes his first move. The realization in Maul's face that he lost and he was baited is a lesson he had been learning since Phantom Menace. Like Duel of the Fates, that cyclical line was closed. That circle was closed. That loop was closed. And I really do think he's trying to make, even in his own weird, twisted Maul way, he's like, hey, he's going to avenge us because you're not going to be around much longer, old man. And I'm on my way out right now. It's also crazy to think about that. Yeah, he holds Maul in the same way he holds Qui-Gon, but he also holds Maul in the same way he held Satine after Maul killed Satine, which is like not just his master. So like you want to talk about just watching the movies, he's holding Maul in the same way he held Obi-Wan held Qui-Gon Jinn when Qui-Gon Jinn was just killed. But in the animation, if you've never watched Clone Wars, Obi-Wan's love interest ish Satine. I mean, he does
call her his
say,
girlfriend, you can say it.
Clone Wars girlfriend. There you go. Yeah. I would have he does say I would have left the order if you've asked me, like for you, if you asked me. I mean, that's a prophecy of love if I've ever heard one for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but like holding him in the exact same way didn't only take away his master, who was his father figure, but like his partner again. It's incredible that Obi-Wan has that moment of like, look what I've risen above, and then showing what he's risen above. And I'm still going to continue to make the right call, which is crazy, dude. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No wonder that dude seemed to age 30 years in a matter of 7 years, you know, from the end of...
He's been wearing it, man. He has been wearing it.
Yeah. The wrinkles is just the gravity of his morals on him the whole time.
100%. All right, let's talk about Solo really briefly. and then explain where Maul Shadow Lord fits into this whole timeline. Solo, we're jumping forward quite a bit, but obviously not quite to the original trilogy. We're not as far back as the Clone Wars. We're in this middle spot where Han Solo's quite a bit younger. At the very end of the movie, in this hologram transmission to Kira, it is revealed that Maul is the true leader of Crimson Dawn, and that really Dryden Voss is one of his many, call them like lieutenants, but one of his pawns ultimately in this like longer term plan to gain power and etc. Maul summons Kira to meet him on Dathomir, which again, if you're a normie who only watches live action, that's not going to make much sense. Luckily, you've been listening to this and you get it. Setting up for her to be like his new primary lieutenant. Again, make Solo 2 happen. This is stuff we all want to see. Maybe we're just going to see it in, the next season of Maul Shadow Lord. Maybe that's going to be our Solo 2, in terms of like telling Kira's story. I mean, it would be very Filoni to tell a parallel story that weaves right through Solo as a film, and just kind of jumps the years from when Kira and Han split up to when they meet again. I mean, it's got to be happening. Am I wrong? Like, this is what we're hoping for.
I could see it, because I think like the idea of the last time we see, we have like Lando is in play, Han is in play, Chewbacca's in play. We have the uprising. I mean, you want to know what happens to, who am I thinking of? Oh my gosh, the amazing helmet in Solo.
Enfys Nest?
Enfys Nest. What happens to Enfys Nest and that band of early early rebels.
Yeah.
It's the early formation of the rebellion. What happens to them? All of those characters are in play. And I think for people who have really appreciated the big swings that Disney took with Solo, is a perfect opportunity to flesh out not only the Pikes, not only the Kintan Striders or any of these other guys that we've seen over and over that kind of represent the underworld of Star Wars. This is a huge opportunity to bring in a character like Han Solo in a way that we've never seen in animated before, but also without putting the focus on him, because it's hard for me to think underground spice running and not get even Poe's mother or whoever, and all these other characters that are kind of in play that don't have to make the show about them, but shows how well these galaxies were connected.
It's also a great way to not put the focus on on a poor young actor that can't possibly, be Harrison Ford, can't possibly live up to that impossible bar. That's a relevant point too. Even if they spend a lot of time with Han Solo, it not being live action and unleashing the internet, on the poor dude again.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah, like that poor guy. Like.
Right. We haven't.
He's a great actor too, dude.
Yeah,
he's awesome. We haven't seen the same people like go as hard as like Lego Han Solo, which I think is AJ plays him, or I'm not sure who plays him, but I'm like, yeah, I think at this point the internet has. At this point, forget those people. But like for us, I'm absolutely fine. I'm fine with Alden coming back and doing the
voice. Yeah,
Solo, 100%.
Yeah, let's go. So it will be really cool to see how Shadow Lord, again, being 1 year after Clone Wars, leading up to who knows how far, starts to move the pieces on the board. Oh, we should also say there's a great moment when Maul and Ahsoka meet. The infamous "I was hoping for Kenobi. Why are you here?"
Why
moment.
Are you here?
Yeah,
awesome.
Yes.
He's having this like hollow meeting with all of the syndicate leaders. And Dryden Voss from Solo is one of those hollows. So the seeds are planted, the roads are being paved to connect all of this together, and Maul Shadow Lord's going to do it. It, of course, introduces an apprentice or a potential apprentice, this Twilight Jedi named Devon Izara. Has anyone heard the pronunciation yet?
It's Devon Izara is how I've heard people say it in interviews and stuff.
She survived Order 66 on the run, and there are lots of like very legitimate rumors that she may become a Legends potentially until now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sith. So,
well, I mean, Will, you're pretty versed in lots of theories at this point. What is your take on this? I mean, it seems like, this is a Filoni project that he's been leading. That this was almost like some of this could be a little bit of retribution for, George's sequel idea. They've obviously talked about it at some point. So, like, do you think this is a little bit of George's sequel trilogy ideas come flesh out to life?
I think knowing what people have said about George and the way he used his ideas, he kind of always had a backbone for stuff. And how the other appendages were built out for that backbone was kind of always just of the time. Something like an Asajj Ventress who popped up in Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, but then was like, oh, we're not going to use that anymore. It's no longer canon, but I still want to use this character. Like, that's the most George Lucas thing ever. In terms of the sequels, George Lucas's sequel treatments, when Sam Witwer was on stage at Star Wars Celebration Japan, he did note that a lot of what was going to happen in this show, or parts of what was going to happen in this show, probably not a lot, were being talked about, or whispers were in the air during the time that he was working on Clone Wars as Maul. And he would go into the different rooms and talk to Filoni and be like, hey, what if we did this? Or like, I've got this idea for this. And Filoni would go, oh, interesting. And then Sam was talking about going into MAUL Shadow Lord and being like, hey, we already had that conversation. And Dave Filoni would be like, oh, interesting. So like all of those cogs were already spinning, much like Palpatine having the plan in motion for the Empire. I think Filoni has kind of always wanted to tell this story when it comes to Maul. I know Sam had said it in an interview that when he would try and bring up stuff of like, oh, what if we did this with Maul? Filoni would be like, well, it's not Maul's show.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Maul's show.
Yeah.
So when it comes to stuff that George was planning on, like, look, do I think Devin Azara is a warm-toned, skinned alien Jedi with a lightsaber who's Force-sensitive, who might be the apprentice of Darth Maul, kind of like a Darth Talon was in Legends? I would like to think that they're going to go a different route other than what Darth Talon was in Legends, especially because of the time period this is set in. All of that Maul stuff with Darth Talon was supposed to be for after the original trilogy, and now this is well before. So like, and we know Maul's plan before, and he dies before the original trilogy. So like, maybe there's a weird twisting there of what George wanted with an apprentice that was a Twi'lek, but I would say it's going to be very slim in terms of that. Now, in terms of what George wanted during the time of the Clone Wars, that's a different story. So I think it's a mesh.
Well, we're going long here, so let's do something fun. Let's pause this conversation because I have a fun response, a speculation, which we do not officially do on this podcast. We'll do that in the bonus segment for the patrons. We can talk about it. But let's hear a few, sort of favorite Darth Maul moments, favorite Maul moments from the patrons, and maybe we'll each pick one of our favorites. We'll do a little segment we used to call, and still do call, I Love You, I Know.
I love you.
I know.
All right, let's hear from a patron who goes by the screen name Mihan Solo.
Hello there. It's Mihan, aka Mihan Solo on the Discord. I have two favorite Maul moments that I want to talk about, both of them happening in the Mandalorian throne room in the Clone Wars. First off being the battle with Pre Vizsla, where Maul defeats him and becomes a true leader of Mandalore. And then the second is, of course, with the amazing Ahsoka Tano, and that entire fight scene, battle, dialogue is just a million out of a million. It's so good. And then my final one is just when he says Lady Tano in Star Wars Rebels. It's perfect.
Yes. Lady Tano. I retweet everything you just said. Thank you, Mihan. Let's hear this next one from a newer patron, Paradox.
Hey, what is up, Thank the Maker? This is Dax, aka Paradax. One of my favorite Maul moments is from the Clone Wars, where Maul has become the ruler of Mandalore. He's killed Pre Vizsla. He has possession of the Darksaber, and he is just at the absolute height of his power. And Palpatine decides that he doesn't like that too much. So he goes to Mandalore, shows up, and Maul immediately gets drained of all this power just from Palpatine entering the room, and he cowers at his feet and becomes the apprentice again. His power, his aura of being in charge is no longer there when Palpatine enters the room. And then, of course, it leads to Savage and Maul fighting Palpatine, Savage losing his life, and you can't help but feel almost empathetic towards this evil individual who's lost the only person he can confide in. And I just think that's so powerful for his character development. So let me know what you guys think and what your favorite moments are. Bye.
Let him know what you think. Guest Will of the Force.
So, because you had brought up what would your favorite Maul moment be, I love that moment, and that was probably one of the ones that were stirring around in my head. Truly, Maul's hope for power and lust for power is what drives him. And seeing that pop up in Maul Shadow Lord, I think is going to be the crux of Maul's moral compass, is that lust for power in this show. So I can't wait to see it.
Sick. All right, let's read. I'll just read one. Let's pick Mackay Eastman. Maul's death scene is one of the most beautifully tragic moments in animation. It makes me wonder what Maul could have been like as a Jedi. Interesting. So much potential wasted on hatred and obsession, even after his second chance at life. Gone in a single swipe.
Ooh, love that.
Well said. Stacey Leanne, longtime patron, always participating. Favorite Maul moments has to be the entire final arc of the Clone Wars, Phantom Apprentice, Shattered, and Victory and Death. And then the Maul and Ahsoka duel, one of my favorites in all of Star Wars. Beautiful and badass. Agreed. Retweet. This is really good, actually, from Claire D. I absolutely love everything Sam Witwer does with Maul's voice, but one of my favorite moments is him chilling on the throne of Mandalore with the Darksaber at the end of Season 5, Episode 15. He says, "Go, rule my people." Already on to his next level of scheming. Good shit.
That is a great moment. And he's casual. It's like kind of, you know what I mean? Like, he's got the arm up, the leg up. He's very like, these are my people now. What can I say?
Yeah.
I did it.
Mike, what's your favorite Maul moment?
I mean, there's a lot that we get later in so many great stories, but I have to say my favorite Maul moment is the fact that they're on Naboo and my dude is just standing there waiting for the doors to open with his hood down, just vibing.
Like, how long was he standing there?
Well, how long was he standing there? He was like, hang on, let me, okay. Should I turn around? And then I'll try. He's there. He feels it. He knows what's coming. But the seeing what he looked like, igniting the double-sided saber for the first time when I'm in 5th grade or whatever it was when the trailer came out, I was like, what is happening? This is so cool. So I think of all the moments that we get in his character development, the introduction to Darth Maul is still my favorite Maul moment because it set off one of the coolest looking characters of all time into a character that we clearly could not get over some almost 30 years later.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically your Maul moment was the experience of that moment from the movie in the trailer. Not just the moment in the movie. Like, that revelation to the world. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. Like, of all the things that people can complain about with the prequels, many of them justified, there is no denying that Lucas knew exactly what the fuck he was doing with this character. And when that was revealed to the world, I mean, that's an all-time Star Wars moment, if anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's undeniable.
Especially because he knew that he had to one-up a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Which at the time he was like, well, this is what our bad guy looks like. It becomes the coolest looking bad guy of all time. And then he's like, so I have to introduce a new bad guy that's somehow like more unique looking than this Cybertronic samurai.
How about 2 red lightsabers? Not 1, but 2.
Oh, it is some of my favorite part of the concept art. And, I look through those books, the concept art of, what would inevitably become Mother Talzin,
Yes.
Darth Maul's original concept art, too scary. Doug Chang making things that are too scary for people. It's like, oh my gosh, this character is amazing.
Yeah.
My favorite, I think visually, I just have to answer this way, like from a visual filmmaker standpoint, the moment in the throne room in season 7 when the glass shatters, that standoff there. Like, of course, all the dialogue, everything surrounding it is brilliant, but that one moment is as iconic in animation, I think, as that double lightsaber reveal is in live action. It's just like, I don't know, it's a beautiful cinematic moment. So that's going to be my visual one. And then in terms of like dialogue and character stuff, I think when Maul's having the conversation with Ahsoka and revealing Sidious's plan to her while putting the pieces together himself in his head, the brilliant moment, is so f***ing cool because he hates Palpatine so much, but he can't help but respect and giggle at how beautifully and brilliantly the whole plan has been laid and played. And again, talking about like just a little moment that says so much about a character, like you have to really peel back, at first glance, it's kind of like, oh, he's losing his marbles again. But the layers of like what that's revealing about the way he sees the Force and the universe and his place in all of it and everyone else's place in all of it is so well done. To anyone who says they don't watch cartoons because they can't get into cartoons, this is some shit that should earn your respect.
Yeah.
Heard. Will, do you have, now that you've heard those, do you still have one? Do you have a different one?
So if we didn't already talk about it and I didn't get to rant about how much I love it before, my favorite Maul moment is absolutely the twin sons duel on Tatooine of him and Obi-Wan. That is my favorite Maul moment by far. However, I'm going to give a quote instead.
Nice.
As like my favorite Maul quote. This is one that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of what's coming up with Maul Shadow Lord. Just did a full rewatch of like everything Maul related up until Shadow Lord. So going through the Clone Wars like a week or two ago, you cannot imagine the depths I would go to stay alive. Is like, that is the basis of that character. When you hear the word depths, it's funny because you think about him falling into a giant hole, but then it's also like just the levels of what's beneath a person that he would stoop to in order to get what he wants is his whole driving thing. And there are a lot of Maul quotes that like set up Maul as, hey, that's definitely Maul's whole MO. But hearing that one and being reminded of it, I'm like, I wrote it down on a Post-it note. I was like, that is such a good quote from Maul.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably play the remainder of these Patreon quotes, and we'll get into a little speculation momentarily in the bonus segment for patrons, which you can find at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod. A couple things to shout out. Well, first, Will, what do you have coming up that you want people to check out? Where can they find you on social media, et cetera?
So I've got a podcast called Determined Focus. You can find that on YouTube. You can find that on Instagram at Determined Focus Pod with my co-host Grayson at Mortis FM. And my name is Will. If you just need another nerdy dude yapping about Star Wars on the internet, I'm at Will of the Force. And that's where you can find me on pretty much everything.
Nice. Mike, Mosh Isley, Chicago this weekend. Give people the details.
I'm driving to Chicago tomorrow to get Mosh Isley launched and started at C2E2 in Chicago, which is going to be a lot of fun. It's happening on Saturday. There are tickets still available. It's at the Bottom Lounge, which is this great venue that a lot of my favorite bands have come through and played. So as of always, we're kind of going with like a underground droid bar, really fun concept. We're going to have a lot of droids there. So make sure you bring your lightsabers and find a ticket tickets available at bottomlounge.com.
If you aren't going to be in Chicago, but you're instead going to be in northern Florida, in the Jacksonville area, Ryan and I will actually be at CollectiveCon this weekend at the Osborne Convention Center, downtown Jacksonville. We're going to have like a Thank the Maker booth. I don't know exactly the details about where it is or how that's working, but we're going to be doing some interviews with some of the guests there, some Star Wars cast. So when we're not doing that, we'll just be hanging out. Come by, say what's up, hang out with us, take some pictures, maybe have some lightsaber fights.
All things on the table.
Yeah.
Anything Star Wars. We'll be hanging out in Jacksonville. Holler at us. All right, everyone, patrons, we'll see you in a minute. Everyone else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Will, thanks again for being here, man.
Appreciate you guys having me. This has been so much fun.
Hell yeah. Anytime. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.